Hi, I'm Wallis Zbitnew, a journalist and a writer. Welcome to my kitchen here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. People are always asking me why my pies are so tasty, and they're wondering how I make them, especially a friend who came all the way from China, and that's Alison.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Well,
You're the best pie maker in the world. I'm a great admirer of yours.
Well, you have eaten a lot of my pies.
Yes, I do, and I brought one back to Beijing last summer to my family, and they fell in love with it after the very first bite. So I really want to know from you how you make those terrific pies.
Well, I'm going to show you in about a minute. I'd like to
Good.
introduce Alison as a person from Beijing, China. She comes to Saskatchewan almost every summer now for the last 10 years. And Alison has her PhD in literature. And of course, this is all gastronomy. So here's where literature and gastronomy blend. And that's the beauty of it. And Alison, when I heard that you had your training in English and you're teaching at a university in Beijing, I thought, when I wrote my book, Mr. Apple Discovers the Four-Way Test, I asked Alison, I said, would you translate it? And you gladly did it.
It's my greatest pleasure and honor to translate your book into Chinese.
Thank you so much. And so what we're going to do is dig right into the pie making, and then we can talk about the relationship. Do you have anything else you want to say in an introductory way?
I always wanted to know, because you once told me people are complaining actually about how troublesome it is to make a pie, and I know you make a pie from scratch. But then you tell me something like making a pie is actually a great joy for you, and you don't just make one pie at a time, you make 5 pies at a time.
Well, it's a lot easier to do that, and I'll show you. I use tender flake lard, which is, you can't use anything but this in my books, and the recipe I have goes all the way back to my grandmother. And so I take a whole pound of lard and I put it in my bowl.
So you use lard instead of something...
Not shortening.
Okay.
Because this makes the flakiest pie.
Right. I bought some pies from the store here.
Just put that in.
They're not just half good as yours, you know that?
Well, thank you for saying that. But you know how simple this is? As I said, my grandmother used to use this recipe. This is a canister with flour in it.
So all these ingredients you are putting in, they are actually for 5 pies.
Yes, this is to
Great.
make 5 pies.
Wow.
I just don't bother with one because we have to divide everything by 1/5. So here we are. We have a whole pound of lard.
Okay.
And then...
How many cups of flour?
5. 5 cups of flour.
Okay.
So-
All-purpose flour, right?
All-purpose flour is good. That's 2, 3,
3.
4. Notice I'm not totally accurate. 5 cups of flour, that's it.
Good.
And then I use the palm of my hand to measure a teaspoon of salt.
Wow, your hand and not a teaspoon.
Well, I think I have that down pat.
So
Now,
this is for the pastry, right?
this is the pastry. That's all it takes.
Okay.
Plus the water, which is actually in the fridge right now. I'll get that in a minute. But
Okay.
this is called a pastry blender. I should have shown it to you before I cut into it. But it's meant to bring the flour and the fat together.
Okay.
And so this takes a little bit of
so
time.
you don't use your hand? No.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because pastry, really nice pastry, which is really what makes the pie, it doesn't like warmth.
Okay, so
you
not
don't-
even the warmth of your hand?
Not even the warmth of
I
your hand.
see, okay.
So what you do
I'll
is,
have to bring this bowl for pastry. What did you say the
this is
name?
a blender.
Okay,
It's a
pastry,
pastry
blender.
blender.
I'll have to get one then.
You can
To
get,
take it back to Beijing.
well, they're very good for this.
Okay,
And-
pastry blender.
And you don't just stop here. You have to
Okay.
keep doing this until all the flour is blended with all the fat.
Okay.
So it's you can speed it up a little bit.
Okay.
I'll tell you, when you talk about taking a pie to Beijing.
I did actually the summer before last summer, because it was summer 2017.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I actually take pies to Edmonton, where my relatives live,
Okay.
and Vancouver, where I have 2 sweet grandchildren.
Wow.
And the last time I was in Vancouver, we just decided to make apple pies for a church picnic that Ava and Liam, my 2 grandchildren, and their parents, Phil and Lenore, were going to. Of course, what are we going to bring for the picnic? And Ava said, apple pie, because that's her favorite. She's only 8 years old and Liam is 6. And so I made 5 pies. We froze 2, we baked 3, took the 3 pies to the picnic, and Ava said, I could hear her in the background. She's going around telling people, Mimi can make 5 pies in 1 hour.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
now we are witnessing this, right?
Well, it's possible to do that, especially if you have all of your fruit, cut up and ready.
Okay.
So it's kind of a fun, fast process. Doesn't take that long.
Good.
But you see this, the way it looks now,
Yeah.
it's too lumpy. So we just have to keep working at it.
Okay.
Then I should tell you about my other 2 grandsons, and they live in New Zealand. Well, when I was there a couple of years ago,
I suppose you don't just take pies there. I suppose you just make pies
we
there.
have to make them.
Okay.
And Ethan and Aaron, and they were only about 12 and 11 then when I was there, and they could hardly wait to get home, get their homework done, and of course their mother, Tracy, and I would get the fruit. We'd get apples, and New Zealand has beautiful fruit too. Apples, plums, peaches, berries, blueberries, or anyway, we got all the fruit ready, and the children would come home, the boys would come home, and Mimi, are we ready to make pies? We did it day after day. I think in total,
How many pies did you bake?
26. We made 26 and froze them.
26.
Do you want to get the feel of this? Just
You mean?
while you do this, I have to get some ice
But
water.
it doesn't like my hands.
No,
so-
just use that.
Oh, okay. You mean this one here?
Yeah, it's a little tough.
When I
isn't
look
it?
at you doing this, it looks so easy, but when I'm actually doing this, it seems I have to use a lot of strength.
So while you're finishing that off, I'm going to measure exactly 1 cup of really ice cold water. Remember, pastry likes to be chilled.
Okay.
So there's 8 ounces of water. And I'll put that back in the fridge.
So it has to be very accurate with the water.
Yes, it does.
So it's 1 cup of water.
1 cup of water. And those are the only 4 ingredients. Thank you, Alison. That's good. That looks like it's all blended. If you ever
Good.
see that there's any flour that's loose around the edges, you just have to keep doing the blender and get rid of that. But this is probably the end of using the blender. That's all you need it for, is this part.
Okay, I see.
So there it goes. And then the next, whoops, I have a little bit there. And so the next thing is, I still don't want to put my hands into this.
Okay.
I have a nice fork. And what I do is I pour the water around that mixture. And sometimes I don't use the whole cup. It just depends on whether you have to do this a couple of times. And you notice I still haven't touched it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Untouched by human hands.
Speaking of weather, I
Yes.
think your pie can cool people down in summer, in hot summer, and warm people up in winter, especially this kind of cold winter.
Yes. See, I don't think I'm going to use the whole cup. Because you see how it's starting to stick together?
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes it depends. Perhaps the lard was at a room temperature that was warmer than usual. But the way it is now, it's kind of mixed together enough.
Oh, now I can already smell the flour.
Probably.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe it's the lard.
the next thing I do is, this has been washed, so I take some flour and just put it on the counter.
Okay.
This is I guess I left the cup in here. Bring some out in the cup. So I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I just do what I have to do. I got this lovely big rolling pin from...
This is really a big one.
From the Hutterites made it. The Hutterites from Quality. They're my friends. And so when I saw that, I said, I've got to have one of those. So this would be, like, what would you say? The size of...
a fist, maybe.
Anyway, that's what I'm going to start with. And it is a bit stickier than I normally have it, but it doesn't matter. So,
you know, when we make dumplings in China, we also use that kind.
A rolling pin?
Yeah, a rolling pin, but not so big.
Well, no, I haven't seen that. This is the biggest one I've ever seen. So what I'm trying to do, Alison, is to get this in a circle so that it becomes the bottom layer for this pan. And the reason I use these aluminum pans is, as you know, I give a lot of pies away.
Thank you.
We can say that. No, I don't, sometimes it comes out just perfectly. Well, then you just throw this in the bottom of the pan. That's your bottom crust.
Okay.
And if it comes apart or anything like that, you could just patch it together.
Okay.
It's no problem. So then, because it's the bottom crust, I'm just going to trim it around the edge with just a butter knife.
Okay.
And there we are. Now the secret about these bits and pieces is you don't just scrunch them all up.
Oh.
Because this will be used again. If you want the crust to be flaky, you layer them. And
well, if you didn't tell me this, I'll just, scratch it up and maybe put it back here. Or?
Well, you do. See, this will be good for another. Usually I use it for a bottom crust again.
Oh, I see.
So maybe you don't know this, but you're going to be making the next pie.
Oh, wow. That's a big challenge. But I'd like to try, yes.
So
no problem.
So this is going to wait. I'll just put it on the side for when you do that. Now, before I do the top crust, what I'm going to do is put the filling in.
Oh, okay.
So I sprinkle the bottom with just a little thin layer of flour.
But why? I mean, why don't you just put the fruit and everything?
Because it needs thickening.
There's
a little bit of a sauce in the pie. So there's flour, and then there's sugar, and I put butter in it too. So the flour and the sugar and the butter make it that nice sauce.
Okay.
So if you want to just go into that bottom part there and pull out that bag of apples that's looking at you at the top, right at the top.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I got it.
So these are frozen apples, and of course we have to have an apple pie.
Right.
For Mr. Apple.
Right.
So anyway, so what you do is it's really good when you get fruit, and I always like to say I get as many free pies as I can, because so many people give away apples crab apples that they grow in their yard, and they let them fall to the ground, and
that's a waste from the nature mother won't be happy about that.
That's true, Mother Nature, isn't it?
And you are making her happy by making this tasty pie.
Well, that's about what I would put in.
Okay.
I think because you don't want so much filling that it's going to overflow in the oven.
Right.
So that can go back in the freezer. Thank you, Alison.
So you used almost half of the bag.
Yes, that's probably enough for 2 pies in there. Now, the next thing you do, and I'll wait till you come back, is I just put a tiny bit more flour on top of that.
Okay.
As well as at the bottom of it. And that's just a bit of a thickener. And then the best, apples are sweeter than some things. Like when you make your rhubarb pie, it's going to take more sugar than the apple pie. So I would say this is a half cup, so I'd say a quarter of a cup of white sugar, like that.
A quarter cup of white sugar.
For an apple pie. And just the same for the brown sugar. But before I put the brown sugar on, I usually like to season it.
What is this?
This is nutmeg, and so I just sprinkle a little pinch of nutmeg on the pie, and a tiny bit of cinnamon. Oops, that's not too tiny, but that's enough.
Okay.
And then the next thing I do is I take a good slice of butter. And they say, why do you put butter in the pie? Well, I remember I just said to make the sauce that's in the pie, to make it nice and saucy a little bit, then you just, and this butter just finds its way around and melds with everything else. So I don't get fancy about this. I just go and I just spread it around. And then after I put the butter on, I take the brown sugar.
I feel
Are you lost?
I'm learning the secrets, the real secrets of your pie.
Well, but you see, some people go ahead and mix their filling ahead of time and all that. I just do it right in the pie. So then you put some brown sugar on.
So that's also a quarter cup? No, a third.
That's a third. But I
third,
might just add a tiny bit more there. I like to just cover the butter with it.
Well, what if, like, I don't usually use brown sugar very often. What if I don't have brown sugar?
You can use white sugar. But I like brown sugar with the apples because it gives it more of a caramely taste.
Oh, okay. I
So
see.
I'm just going to rinse my fingers off.
Okay. And then it will be time to make the top
The
pastry.
top, we're just about done.
Okay,
Just about done. Then we'll do the top. So I'll take the same amount of pastry.
Still maybe like this kind of size, my fist.
Well, it's about. You
Or
have to
smaller.
kind of judge what the size of the pie. Like some pie plates, these are 9-inch, and some are larger and some are
Okay.
smaller.
What about this pie? What is the inch?
9.
9.
It's a 9-inch pie.
Okay, 9 inch.
Now this pastry can also be used, and I've done this with. I've made with leftover chicken or turkey, and I'll make a chicken pot pie and put the gravy in it instead of sugar and flour.
So it's a very powerful pastry.
Well, you can look at that. It's very tender. I can tell you that because it breaks very easily. But no,
Good.
it really hasn't been touched by human hands very much. So that's the real secret. And I remember talking to somebody about pies, and it was an elderly gentleman, and he said, "You know what a pie is? It's
Yes.
the pastry."
I agree. Yeah.
So you've had different pies that I've made, haven't you? Like,
I've had your apple pies and rhubarb strawberry pies, Saskatoon pies, right? Did I have blueberry pies as well?
you may have. I make
Yeah.
them. I don't know if you had them. This is, well, this water is going to come in handy. So what you do is you wet the edge of the
Okay.
pie so that the top crust will stick to the bottom crust. So that's the secret there. So I'll take this crust, which is the top crust, and put it on top. I didn't do a very good job there. And then I seem very slap happy, and I am. But as you know, it seems to turn out. Okay, so the next thing is I do the same thing. I just trim the edges. Notice that I took off all my rings before I got into them.
I don't wear any jewelry on it.
Well,
on my hands,
if you're making pastry, especially, and you don't want to wear jewelry,
Yeah, I'll remember that.
it gets into your jewelry, and it's just harder to clean. This is for your next
Okay.
bottom crust. Then I just go around the edge very quickly and just one thumb after another. Can you see that?
I was always wondering, how did you make this part? You know, I thought you were using some magic tool or whatever. Okay, now I got it.
These are the magic tools right here. Okay, then every pie has to be vented.
Okay.
And so the quickest way I find is to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So they can breathe when they are baked.
Well, so the steam comes out of it.
Okay.
So I usually make just this pattern. It's so much, I do the simplest things I can do that work.
Oh, this is beautiful too.
There it is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With lines.
And that's it, your pie's done. Now,
Wow.
now comes the challenge. I like this little scraper because I can scrape
No, I'll make the pastry. Wow, I'm really nervous. that you are here. You are
I'm here to help
on
you.
my side. So.
Well, you wanted to do this, so here we are.
So shall we switch our place now? I'll be making my first pastry.
I'm so excited. Let's change places. I'll be the observer.
I hope I remembered everything clearly. So first,
Enough of it. Don't be too hesitant because this is stickier dough than usual this time for some reason. So now here you go, and you're off and running. I think you're going to do well this time. And just what I would do is try before you put that on the sticky part, roll the ball into the flour.
Oh, you mean this way?
Yeah, and turn it over, and then it won't stick to your rolling pin.
I see.
You're a good learner.
Thank you.
A good student.
So now I can roll it.
That's for sure. You're getting there. And I think that the reason it didn't work the last time is because of. But be sure you go right to the end, okay? And remember to lift it up off the board before you keep rolling, so that you are always it's always free to put your rolling pin to the side now, and lift it up. Be sure there's flour underneath, because if you just keep rolling, then it tends to stick to the counter. So now just spread the flour underneath and turn it over. And you're doing great. Let's see and put some flour on top as well.
Okay.
Just so that it doesn't stick to your rolling pin.
Meant a little bit.
That's good. It's coming, isn't it? So just gently up and back. I think you're just about there. Don't you feel successful now?
Yeah. Feel a little better than last time.
Well, I think that was the problem, was that. Okay, so we turn it over one more time. It's a little thick, isn't it? Do you see? Can you sense how thin it should be? See, what I would do is patch these pieces together before I rolled it. I'm not sure how other people do their pies, but and then back and up again. Okay. And the thing that you could do is patch it up in the pan as well.
Okay.
So one more time, turning it the other way, and one more roll, and then I think you're ready to drop it into the pie plate.
Oh. I think this time maybe this direction.
That's right.
Right.
Well, you catch on quickly. Just bring those ends together that you see apart as much as you can.
Okay.
That's good. See, sometimes the dough, the pastry is easier to roll, and even though I didn't use a full cup of water this time, it's a little stickier. But it's a good situation to be in because it's reality. I think it looks as though it's ready to go into the pan, don't you?
Okay, let's try.
Let's try. I love your attitude. I'll take that knife out of your way. Okay. Look at that. Just put your hand underneath to hold it, and lay it in. What does it remind you of? So you can put a piece here to patch that up, or move it over a little bit. That's very nice, isn't it, Alison? Aren't you quite pleased with it?
Thank you, Master.
Okay, that's good. And don't be hesitant about making sure that it's together. Just take charge of it.
Okay.
That's very good. I think now you take the knife. This little part has to go down. That's good.
You just
keep your knife upright.
Upright.
Upright, and just
in this way.
Yeah, just up and down as you cut it. And keep turning the pan. And I'm going to have to deal with those bits that you're cutting off. I think I can handle them.
I'm sure you can.
Well, I've done it before, hundreds of times. It looks good.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Look at that. Now,
And then you told me something very important here. I should not just scramble it, just fold it.
if every student were as good as you are, wow.
Thank you.
That's so good. There we are. Layer it, and so that keeps the flakiness in the pastry.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now what are you going to do next? Do you remember, or do you want me to tell you?
I should put some flour here and then put these.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
Okay, you said.
You know what you'd be called here in Canada? A quick study.
Thank you.
You know what that is, or did they use that expression in China?
Uh-huh.
A quick study. A little more than that, because
a little more?
yes,
Okay.
because rhubarb is juicier than apples, right?
Oh.
So I'd put more than that even.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to judge what you're putting into the pie.
Mm-hmm.
There, that looks like a good amount.
Okay.
The rhubarb is there. It was frozen, but now it's thawed. Nice red rhubarb.
So you have cut them in this kind of small pieces in advance.
Yes.
Right? Did you peel the?
No.
No, you didn't.
No, you don't
peel
take the outside
Okay.
off. That's a good question. No,
Okay.
that's what gives it the redness. Now,
Rhubarb
just
is.
smooth that over with your hand and see how much more it'll take. Just,
Okay.
I don't think it'll take the full bag, the other bag. Some of it, maybe half of it, because rhubarb has a tendency to overflow.
Oh,
And your oven gets all smoky and it isn't very pleasant.
I wouldn't like that.
Okay, that's about it.
Maybe. Okay.
That's good. So remember, there's got to be room for the sugar and
You would put a little more flour first,
Yes.
and then the.
remember this is rhubarb,
It takes more
a
flour.
little bit more than the
Okay.
apple does. That's good. What you've got there is fine.
Okay. And this is ground nutmeg.
That was
Shall
for
I
the,
put-
no, that was for the apple pie.
Oh.
So apple
okay.
likes nutmeg, but rhubarb doesn't care for it.
Okay.
So I do put a little cinnamon on it though.
Just put
Alison.
what the rhubarb likes. So.
A little bit of cinnamon, a sprinkle.
Oh,
A little more, that's good. You actually, when you eat the rhubarb pie, I don't think you ever realize there's cinnamon in it, or do you?
I think so.
I don't really taste the cinnamon.
You think this is enough now?
A little bit more.
Okay.
That's
Oh.
good. That's good.
Okay, and then sugar.
Then sugar. Then you'll use the full half cup from the white sugar.
Okay.
The full half cup. Because just dip it right in and fill it.
Yeah.
And this is a half cup.
Oh, a full half.
The
okay.
full half cup, yes. Because with rhubarb, if you've eaten it.
All right.
have you
So
eaten
this
it?
is like double the sugar of the apple.
Of
pie.
apple, that's true.
I see.
Yeah, it takes more sugar. Have you ever eaten rhubarb just out of the garden?
No.
Oh,
No.
it's very sour. We used to when we were kids, and we'd have a little thing of sugar, and we'd dip every bite into the sugar bowl.
Okay. So you eat rhubarb in a salad way.
I'm just looking at that rhubarb. I think you probably.
A little more.
I think there's when you look at it, there's a little space there. You could put a little more. It looks like you could take. It'll handle more on that side,
Okay.
on this side here, and around the edges on the far side. There, it should do it.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks. And then
you.
use
Brown sugar.
the brown sugar, but what I do is usually cut that nice slice of butter, about 1/4 of an inch thick.
Butter first before. The
I do
brown
it I do the brown sugar on top of the butter.
Oh.
At least 1/4 of an inch. Don't be don't.
Is it-
That's good. That's good. It's perfect. Got a little thin at the bottom,
Yeah.
so you might have to cut a little more at the bottom. See, butter in the pie makes it just not only gives it flavor, but it also makes that sauce that we're talking about. So you can just put that all over.
I like butter.
Yeah, it is good. That looks good. So do you have pies in China?
No.
You don't?
No, I think the first pie I had is the pie I had at your farm in 2009.
Really?
Yes. And then my family said, why don't we have this, culture? We love it.
And so you're going to do that. So now, here's a paper towel, just so that you can wipe your fingers.
And now
a good heaping third of a cup of brown sugar on top of the butter.
a full third cup of brown sugar.
Yes, a nice heaping cup.
A nice heaping cup.
That's good. Yes. Okay. Just dump it right over, turn it right over, and spread it with your hand if you want.
Oh,
Everybody has their own way of doing things. Yeah, like that.
Good.
That's excellent. Now we're ready for the top crust. I would use that little black scraper and scrape your base so that you've got a smooth start again.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Okay.
So first,
quite a bit of flour. Remember that the dough is the baked pastry is a little stickier than usual. Okay, now see what you're gonna take.
I think something like my fist.
Perfect. That's maybe a little more than that. Your hands are a little smaller than mine. Yeah, that's good. I would say that would do it.
And then I'll have
Just
flour on both sides
Yes.
first, and then before I roll it.
Do you learn everything you do this quickly?
I think because you're a good teacher.
Oh, come on.
You're always so patient and encouraging. Okay.
Well, I know that I really appreciate what you did in translating Mr. Apple Discovers the Four-Way Test.
I learned a lot from translating this book. For me, it's not just translating. It's also a process of learning, because I learned from the change of Mr. Apple, how he used to think negatively, and then gradually with the influence of his friends and the four-way test, he totally changed himself and become a very positive thinking person.
Well, do you remember at the beginning of the book, we called him Mr. Crabapple?
Right, yes.
And then all his friends, who were really kind to him, changed his name at that picnic they had. And they said, we don't want to call you Mr. Crabapple anymore because you're a different person. So do you remember what they changed his name to?
Mr. Delicious Apple.
That's right.
Yeah, I just wonder how you came up with this terrific idea, this story.
Well, I like when I joined Rotary. You're making it long,
right.
and you have to make it round.
Right, I'm making a rectangle pastry.
That would be lovely on a meat pie in a 9x12.
But not
dish.
For this.
You don't need any more flour. You've got lots on it. You see that there's a lot there. You don't need to add it. You're doing great. So the four-way test just burned in my soul because it's of the things you think or say or do, you ask yourself 4 questions. So you're really, it's really a decision-making process. First of all, you say to yourself, is it the truth? And then you ask yourself, is it fair to all concerned? And the third question is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And the fourth question is, you know all these anyway.
Is it beneficial to all who concerned?
To all concerned, that's right. So all those 4 points add up to making a decision of integrity, which is what we all want to do. And the four-way test really is a lot like the golden rule. Do you know what the golden rule is?
It means it applies to almost the universal issues or problems.
Yeah, the golden rule is you do unto others. You treat others the way you want to be treated.
Oh, that's the golden rule. Okay.
Yes. So you do unto others as you want them to. You treat them the way you want to be treated. So it involves being kind. So there are a lot of good messages in the book. And the reason I used fruit characters, that's good. Let's think about the pie for a minute.
Okay.
Excuse my reach here, Alison. Remember, you have to wet all the edges before you put the top on?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Just with your finger, just dip your finger in and just go round and round.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I used fruit characters is I tried writing the 4-way test book for about 10 years, and it always was so serious, and it just was boring. And so one day I was talking to my friend Judy Rasmussen. She loves children, and she tells children's stories, although this isn't necessarily a children's story, children can read it. But she used Mr. Crabapple to teach them lessons. And so I said to Judy, may I borrow Mr. Crabapple? Then I came up with 3 other characters. And sometimes, I'll give you another little secret. Sometimes people do this. They put it on the rolling pin and roll it. And I wonder if that isn't a better idea.
Maybe.
And then just bring that.
So, do I need to wet it again?
No, it's okay. I think it's still wet, isn't it?
It's a little dry now.
Oh, that's not. It wouldn't hurt to touch it up.
Okay.
So that's good. So if you want to just try rolling this, take the rolling pin and just lay it on that way. That helps sometimes.
But
it's good. Very nice.
But here, this part here, maybe.
Well, maybe we better move it around. Over. It's just. It's a bit short at that end, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit short here. You think this will do?
Well, sometimes what do they say? Borrow from Peter to pay Paul? Just put that.
Borrow Peter?
Well, borrow from Peter to pay Paul. I don't think that's...
borrow from Peter to pay Paul. I think we have similar expression in Chinese. 拆东墙补西墙 means borrow from the east wall to mend the west wall.
That's about the size of it. I think that you're okay now. Just trim the edges. It's not your perfect one, but pies still taste good when you bake them.
So
just cut around the edges.
Still upright?
Yeah, just you're way more delicate than I am. It's
Thank you for the encouragement.
Well, Alison, I'm so glad that we finally got together after all
I've been because I admire your skill for making pie for such a long time, and
well, you'd think that I would be able to be better at helping you, but this looks okay. This is good. Okay.
Put these ones here. And then you said
I'll put these in here.
Magic thumbs.
Okay, that's it.
But how come?
Are your thumbs
you put these 2 here first, and then again here, or just,
yes, again, like you did. You did it right.
And then
the next 2, keep them close together. Don't leave a
close
space.
together.
Yeah, don't leave a space between them.
Okay.
Just together. That's it. Oh my gosh, you learned so quickly.
Thank you.
Doesn't it feel good to squish into it?
Yes. It's like I'm having a lot of fun now.
You can call it Play-Doh if you want. Do you think oh, look how pretty yours is. Do you think your daughter, Rebecca, who's 13 now?
14.
She's 14. Do you think she would like to try making pies if you...
I'm sure. She's also very enthusiastic about baking.
Oh, so she'll want to learn, won't she?
Yes, definitely. Especially it's about learning making Wallis pie.
You don't have to... You don't have to keep closer to the edge.
Oh, okay, I see.
Because you notice you're making a little ridge. That's okay. It'll probably look pretty when the pie is baked. It'll be nice and brown.
But then may get burned.
Maybe,
right?
well, you might be pressing a little harder than I do. I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. That's why.
And-
Okay.
and
I'll
so-
just be a little gentler then.
Well, and stay closer to the edge. Like this, I don't.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I don't leave a rim at the edge. But you know what? I've seen people do all kinds of edgings on pies, and some of them do it a little twisted.
So this can be kind of trademark.
This
I
is-
mean, the edge of the pie. What
I've got
kind
your thumbprint now forever. You can't do anything wrong. I'll say, well, did this woman do it? Here's her thumbprint in this pie. No, you're right. It is your
No, I
trademark.
mean-
There's different people put different edges on them. And do you want to pick up the pair of scissors? That's very good. This is fine.
Right, and then it's 5 cards here.
Yeah, just a straight line down. Just clip, 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 clip.
No, how come? 1, 2. Oh, second one's better. Huh? 3,
I think you're doing great.
4.
What I like about you, Alison, is that you're not afraid to try. So
Thank you, because I have a good teacher beside me.
wait, some people are intimidated by
1,
something
2,
as simple as a pie.
No, you're having 5 lines.
You know, if you
here.
have 6, nobody's going to count.
Oh, okay.
You can have as many or as few as you like. It's kind of individualistic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice. No. Oh, and you say I'm a good teacher. That's what I started doing when I was just a 19-year-old, teaching school in Saskatoon. There you go. It's kind of fun to do that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. What about only 4? Will
4 is
that do?
good. It looks pretty. I think that's very nice.
Thank you.
Don't you?
Wow.
I don't know if I want to compare them. Actually, I like yours better.
I like yours better. I like my master's better.
Anyway, so we'll just pop these into the oven.
Okay.
And this one is apple.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is rhubarb. This is where gastronomy and literature meet. I wrote this book called Mr. Apple Discovers the 4-Way Test. And the 4-Way Test is a marvelous tool. And I know that, Alison, you know it off by heart because you translated this book into Chinese. Now, don't say it in Chinese, but say it in English. Or you can say it in both if you like.
Okay. The 4-way test. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number 4, what is number 4? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And do you ever use the 4-Way Test yourself?
Of course. You know, sometimes I would have this argument with my husband or with my daughter Rebecca, and sometimes these family issues concerns not just me and my husband, and also like my husband's family and my family. And then when it is really hard for me to make the decision, or when it is really very hard for both of us to make the final decision, I would suggest to my husband, say, let's just calm down and, you know, take a seat and have a cup of tea, and then bring up the 4-way test and then check the 4 questions one by one, and then finally we can work out a solution. That solution usually is the one we are very pleased with. I think that's usually the best, actually.
It is fair to all concerned.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
that's so good. Thank you for sharing that, Alison.
Thank
And
you.
The person who wrote the 4-Way Test was a man who I've never met. I think he died in the 60s. But his name is Herbert Taylor. He's an American, and he had a very good job. And the bank came to him and asked if he would take over a floundering pots and pans company called Club Aluminum. That was they manufactured pots and pans. And he decided, I think, to take it over. He knew that there were 250 people that would lose their jobs. This is way back in 1932, in the dirty 30s. So he took the challenge that the banker gave him, and from in the 1930s, that was a tough time, and he felt so badly that these people might lose their jobs. And he sat down at his desk. He looked everywhere. What am I going to use? What am I going to use as the principles to run this company? And he said he couldn't find anything. So being a godly man, he said, I sat at my desk, I put my head in my hands, and I asked the one who knows all the answers, and God gave him an answer. Then he reached for a piece of paper and he wrote down the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do. Remember, it all starts with the thinking. And then our thoughts determine what we say, and our thoughts and words determine our action. But Herbert Taylor took that company, Club Aluminum, over a 10-year period with integrity. He took them out of debt and into a plus. I think it was over $1 million plus in the 11th year. And then he turned the company over to someone else, and he worked with young people in the whole Christian area. But what a fine man that wrote the 4-way test. I have his autobiography. If you want to get a copy of this book, Mr. Apple Discovers the 4-way test, go to the publishing company, innertruthpublishing.com, and you can order one book. You can order an ebook. It's in Spanish, it's in Chinese, and English. Now the hard copies are in English. The other two are Kindle books. So please go ahead and have a look, and I'm sure you'll like the story. Now, where gastronomy meets literature, let's see how our pies are doing.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
I bet you're getting hungry.
I am.
Ooh. Oh. There's the rhubarb pie.
Smells good.
And there's the apple pie. Whoops, thank you. So let us take them. I'll just keep my pot holders. They're nice and warm, but they're still fine to eat. They look gorgeous. They smell so good. Alison, you did a great job. Congratulations.
You did a great job. You are the best teacher in the world. Congratulations.
I can't believe that's your first pie. This is going to be in pictures forever.
I hope so.
Well, let's go over and put them on the table and have a taste.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
I love it. Thank you, Wallis.
You're welcome.